Oh, it's true. He's not wrong. I eat the same lunch every day, every single day. Anybody else do that? Okay, one. You're super fit though, so that's why, huh? That's my goals, dude. I'm trying to be fit. Yeah? Every day? That's what I'm talking about. See, you guys need to try this out. It works. I did convince a rental company to give me, David, it's a V8. David, yeah. Did anybody else like catch his mistake? Was any car guys in the room? You're like, oh, David's dumb. Hemi means V8. Anyway, okay. Cool. Well, hey, I am super excited for tonight. We're going to have a good night together. I'm super glad I got you guys right here. I saw you worshiping. You guys are you are expressive. You're out there. I love it. My iPad's going to need my face for a second, so I can turn this on. Still on Spotify. And there's my notes. So the last time I was here with you guys was literally January. It was January 3rd. I looked at the date. And that's a long time ago. We're in September. It's been months. And the last time I was here, it was beginning of the year, so I was telling you about a goal I had. And that goal of mine was I wanted a six-pack. That was my goal. Well, I get to stand here today and tell you that I got 4 of them. All right? Nailed it. Maybe the Young Adults Ministry will bless me with the opportunity to be here before 2021, and I could tell you I made it. But maybe not. Before we get started, though, I always, anytime I guest speak somewhere or anything, I always take a moment so that we can honor the people who actually spend day in and day out making this ministry great, setting up these chairs, making sure this environment is ready for you. Worship is incredible. And so can we just give it up for the Young Adults team? Like, they've been working hard. I've been very impressed with them. They're something else. And then next week, hey, don't miss it. I'm so excited for next week. It is going to be an incredible week. It's going to be a week that you're not going to want to miss, and that's all I'm going to say. So if you have your Bibles, I want you to open up to Numbers 12. We're going to spend a lot of time in Numbers 12. The book of Numbers is it's in the Old Testament. It's one of the first 5 books of the Bible. It goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Most of you probably skip over it because you don't like numbers, you don't like math, you don't want to do that. You see the word numbers, and you're like, no, thank you. And that would make sense because most of the book is about numbers. But don't worry, I will not be spouting off numbers to you today. We're going to be looking at a pretty cool story. But I'm going to start reading in Numbers 12, 9 through 16. I'm going to pray for us, and then we are going to unpack the entire chapter of Numbers 12. But Numbers 12, 9 through 16 says this: The Lord was very angry with them, and he departed. As the cloud moved from above the tabernacle, there stood Miriam, her skin as white as snow from leprosy. When Aaron saw what had happened to her, he cried out to Moses, "Oh, my master, please don't punish us for this sin we have so foolishly committed. Don't let her be like a stillborn baby already decayed at birth." Beth. So Moses cried out to the Lord, "Oh God, I beg you, please heal her." But the Lord said to Moses, "If her father had done nothing more than spit in her face, wouldn't she be defiled for 7 days? So keep her outside the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be accepted back." So Miriam was kept outside the camp for 7 days, and the people waited until she was brought back before they traveled again. If I had a title for my message today, which I don't, but if I did, it would be The Cost of Jealousy. The Cost of Jealousy. Jealousy. You know that song, Mr. Brightside? Come on. You know it? Sing it for me, because I don't sing. Come on, let me hear you. Jealousy, something, 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 something. Yeah. Babe, I forgot the words. I was going through the message with her, and she's like, "You should sing that song." And I was like, "That's a great idea. I'm going to forget the words." She's like, "You will." I did. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for young adults. Thank you for this stage of life. As hard and difficult as it can be at times, it is such a fun and exciting time of life. I pray that you give that attitude to our young adults, that they will see the stage of life they're in as such a gift from you. I pray that as we go into talking about jealousy and gossip and envy, you will prepare our hearts to hear what you have to say. I believe we will be convicted tonight, but I also believe that we will be able to see your love and your care for your people. Lord, you're amazing. We love you in your heavenly name. Amen. All right, how many of you have a car? Raise your hand if you got a car. Okay, cool. Raise your hand if you are like responsible for all car everything, like maintenance, insurance, all of it, gas, all you. Okay. Cars are the worst. I hate them. They are seriously so frustrating. And don't car problems come in like just succession of each other? It just goes one thing after another thing after another thing, and then you'll go through a season of nothing. That's how cars work. And they're so frustrating. So my wife, she has a car. And literally, I am not kidding you. We bought it like 4 years ago. Never had a single issue with it. Not one. Like, barely even had to do oil changes. We should have done oil changes, but we barely had to. We just chose not to. And so maybe that's why the problems I'm about to tell you about are happening. No, so we get this car, like 3-4 years of just amazing, just drives so great. And then things start happening. The first thing that happened was the window stopped rolling down. I was like, okay, no big deal. We don't have to fix that. So we decided we're not going to fix that. And then we're doing some more stuff, and then we decide, you know what? This car's been doing good. It's just the window. Why don't we sell it? We're like, great idea. So we're thinking about selling it. We're like, okay, cool. So then we're like getting it ready to sell, and we're like, let's just take it to our guy. Everybody's got a guy, right? You got a guy to take your car to, okay? Make sure you get a guy. You need a guy. Or a gal if she's like super into cars and stuff. Does anybody have a female mechanic? Well, guess not. Everybody's got a guy. So we bring it to my guy, and I'm like, hey, we're going to sell this car. Make it great. Ignore the window. We're just going to sell it. Window broken. It really doesn't devalue the car much. It doesn't. I asked my mechanic, my guy. He was like, yeah, don't worry about it. So then he tells us, he's like, okay, yeah, honestly, the only thing you'll probably maybe want to do is like the brakes. They're getting a little low. You could do it. And I was like, if I sell it quickly, do I need to do that? He's like, well, who are you selling it to? I was like, anyone? He's like, yeah, don't do it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't do the brake. And then finally, like my sister and my brother-in-law, they're like, oh, maybe we want the car. They got 2 babies. And I'm like, ooh, I got to do the brakes. So we're like, okay, let's do the brakes. So we get the brakes done. And, sorry, we didn't get the brakes done. We're getting ready to do the brakes. And then something else happens. What's the worst thing that can happen to your car in the middle of summer? AC. Literally, we're driving down the 101, heading south, and all of a sudden we just kind of hear this, almost just like, it was like a poof. It was like, and we're like, did you hear that? And then it started getting really hot in the car. We're like, the air is blowing hot. Did you do something? And we start smelling something. Like, you know it's bad when you smell something burning and you're driving down the freeway at 80 miles an hour, okay? And we're like, ooh, that doesn't seem right. So take it to the mechanic, right? And I'm like, hey, the window, the brakes, and the AC all need to be fixed. And he's like, okay. So I do my research, and I'm like, okay, AC compressor, like $250, $300, okay? Brakes, just the back brakes, fine. That's like $300 too, $200, something like that, for all the parts. Parts for that was only like $100. And then what was the other thing? The window little actuator thing that makes it go up. I was like, okay, that's like $150 too. So then I add all that up, and I'm like, okay, so that's probably like $700 in parts. And I was like, okay, labor, probably like, I don't know, like $300. And I was like, perfect. It's going to be under $1,000. So I tell him, do it all. I get a call. He's like, hey, your car's done. I was like, cool, how much does it cost? He's like, oh, it's going to be like $1,400. I was like, what? $1,400. I thought it was going to be under $1,000. Clearly, I misestimated the whole labor thing. Cars always cost more than you think they will. Always. It happens all the time. Like, you think, oh, this little thing doesn't work. $100. No, $600. I am so done with cars because my car got in a car accident. And now I'm driving the rental, but now we got to figure out the accident stuff and all of that going on. Cars are the worst. Can we agree? Cars always cost more than we expect. And I tell you that because in the same way, the cost of jealousy, the cost of gossip, the cost of envy will always cost you more than you ever think it will. It will always cost you more. And we are about to jump into a story in the Bible, in the book of Numbers, of all books, come on, that's going to teach us about jealousy and envy and gossip and what it can do to our very hearts. And so we're gonna really unpack this. I'm really excited for this. This story is so it's kind of put in there, and you're like, why is it in here? It kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't make sense where it's at. It's like the Israelites just got out of Egypt, and then all of a sudden we have this random family story. We got a family story because we're gonna see three characters. We're gonna see Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. They're all siblings. Miriam is Aaron and Moses' sister, and they have kind of been leading the nation of Israel with Moses at the head. It's important to know that. God has appointed Moses as the leader of the Israelites at this time. Miriam and Aaron have been helping out with it. And we're going to jump into the story right when we see jealousy and envy kick in. So we're going to start in verse 1, Numbers chapter 12. It says this. While they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because he had married a Cushite woman. What? That's weird. Why do we care if Aaron and Miriam don't like Moses' wife? Oftentimes when jealousy seeps in, because spoiler alert, Aaron and Miriam are jealous of Moses' position. I want you to be mindful of when you get jealous of someone in another position that you're not in. It is dangerous and it is scary what it can do to your heart. Because what Miriam does is she approaches Aaron and she's like, hey, can you believe he married her? And this was somewhat a big deal. It would cause some discourse in the family. Because what happened is this woman was not of the same region as them. She was from a different place. Like her complexion was all different. And everybody was like, it would have been weird. It would be like, oh, why, Moses, you didn't pick like someone from our own clan? Like, what's up? But Miriam's like, Aaron, can you believe he did that? Like, why does she care? They're like old. They're like adults. They can do what they want. They can marry whoever they want. But then we keep reading because we see what the real issue was. Verse 2, they said, Aaron joined in. Miriam started it, Aaron joins. They said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he spoken through us too? But the Lord heard him. In parentheses, now Moses was very humble, more humble than any other person on earth. It's funny when we want to gossip, and we're going to like bring someone else in on that conversation, we tend to ease into it. You know, we don't want to go into it full force with everything we're thinking because we need to make sure the person we're bringing into this, into jealousy, into gossip, in envy, we need to make sure they're going to be cool with it. Because something in us knows we shouldn't be doing that. For some reason, we can't help it, and so she gets Aaron on the whole wife thing. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I'm with you. And then all of a sudden, it takes like a turn for the worse, and they attacked the very character of Moses, the real issue. They were jealous of his position with God. Be careful with jealousy. Be careful, because what's crazy is in their statement, God has literally used both Miriam and Aaron in the past to do amazing and incredible things with the nation of Israel. So now they're just filling their heads with all these lies and just convinced that, oh, only God talks to Moses. Like, okay, God, what about us? Like, we're here too. So petty. And oftentimes our jealousy, our gossip, our envy will lead to really low and petty moments. As we keep reading, It says, so immediately the Lord called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam and said, go out to the tabernacle, all three of you. So the three of them went to the tabernacle. Tabernacle is just a meeting place, all right? I had to look that up. I'm a middle school pastor. Like, I don't have to know that much. I'm just kidding. Then the Lord descended in the pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tabernacle. Aaron, Miriam, he called, and they stepped forward. And the Lord said, oh, don't go yet. Don't read more. Love this. Immediately, God shuts this down. Immediately. Some of us are not so lucky. Some of us, we get intertwined with jealousy and gossip, and it kind of just keeps going and going until it comes to an end where it's terrible, destructive, and you wonder how you even got there. But immediately, God steps in, and he's like, I'm going to shut this down. This will not happen. Because what's crazy about jealousy is it will spread like wildfire. It will spread so fast. And it will be uncontrollable, and it will just go. And these people were the leaders of an entire nation. And if Miriam and Aaron, who are closest to Moses, are trying to bring Moses down, and it begins to seep into the entire nation of Israel, they will fall apart. And God says, no, I will not let this happen. And so immediately, he calls them to meet with him. He calls them to a meeting. And so they meet. And I could imagine in this moment, Aaron and Miriam, they're thinking, oh man, we were just talking about how like dumb Moses is being as like the leader, whatever, and now God's calling us. I bet God's about to give it to Moses. Because apparently they were thinking Moses is being all prideful, like, oh, God only talks to me. And they're thinking, man, Moses is about to get it. Let's go. It reminds me of, I played soccer in high school. Any soccer players in the room love soccer? Okay, there are not as many hands in this room as I thought there should be. Okay, you should all play soccer. It's really great. It's better than baseball. Okay, I'm playing soccer, and there was this game I remember, and our goalie was just letting in every single ball that came by. It was terrible. You would the ball would roll past him, and you're like, how'd you not stop that? There's literally no way that just happened. And it just happened again and again. He was having a bad day. And so, the whole team is complaining, we're upset. We're like, oh, can you believe Riley missed that? Are you kidding me? Riley, seriously, Riley should have gotten that. He's a way better goalie than that. Gosh, why does coach even put him in? And so, we're saying all this stuff on the sidelines. We're saying it on the field. We're getting all frustrated. And we're like, man, coach needs to pull Riley. He can't even be our goalie anymore. This is terrible. And so we get to the next practice, and our coach pulls us all together. And he's like, hey, we need to talk about the game the other day. And we're like, yes, let's talk about it because Riley sucked. And he's like, I know you all think it's Riley's fault. We're like, yeah. He's like, it's not. There are 10 other people on that field that the ball had to get past in order for it to get past Riley. You all are responsible for what happened. And he laid into us. Riley's all off to the sides and we're just getting ripped into. I imagine Miriam and Aaron are hoping that that's what happens to them. But then they find themselves, in an awkward situation. Because, verse 6, and the Lord said to them, I'd be so scared if the Lord said this to me. Now listen to what I say. If there were prophets among you, I, the Lord, would reveal myself in visions. I would speak to them in dreams, but not with my servant Moses. Of all my house, he is the one I trust. I speak to him face to face clearly and not in riddles. He sees the Lord as he is. So why were you not afraid to criticize my servant Moses? That's heavy. Aaron and Miriam attacked the very core of who Moses was, the very relationship he had with God himself. Man, we have to be so careful when we judge people's relationship with Jesus. We have to be so careful when we think we know someone's heart better than God knows their heart. Because it can become so easy to look at friends, look at people in this room and be like, oh, they're faking it. Oh, they're not really a Christian. How can they even step in? You better be careful when you start attacking the very relationship that people have with Jesus. And what's crazy is Aaron and Miriam, they were upset because they felt like Moses had favor with God. And God says, yes, he does. What of it? What's the problem with it? I have chosen Moses to be my servant who leads this nation. Why do you have a problem with that? I'm God. I get to make that decision. Whew. This story of envy and jealousy, you can just see how gross it gets, how it just unfolds into this really uncomfortable, awkward moment between siblings. Story continues, verse 9. The Lord was very angry with him, and he departed. As the cloud moved from above the tabernacle, there stood Miriam. Man, can you imagine how quiet it was in that moment? God's like, I'm out, peace. I was like, her skin as white as snow from leprosy. When Aaron saw what had happened to her, he cried out to Moses, oh, my master, please don't punish us for this sin we have so foolishly committed. Don't let her be like a stillborn baby already decayed at birth. It almost seems like Aaron noticed what happened to Miriam quicker than Miriam realized what happened to her. But what happened to Miriam was the condition of her heart was now reflected by her outward appearance. Jealousy is disgusting. It's ugly. It's gross. It takes hold of you, and it just destroys you. Leprosy, if you don't know anything about leprosy, it's a really, really kind of freaky, gross skin disease where things like boils and things just start to show up everywhere. And a lot of commentaries I read were like, it was a severe case, like instantly. Like in a moment's notice, Miriam had one of the most severe cases of leprosy you've ever seen. And Aaron looks at her and he's like, oh my goodness. And he turns right there. He's like, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. Moses, I'm sorry. And he repents and he's like, no. And catch this. This is the very first time Moses speaks. He has not said a word this entire time. I think we can learn from Moses on the other side. If people are speaking ill of you, you don't need to know. You don't need to care, because you just go after what God is showing you in your life. You go after his call for you in your life, and you do not need to worry about what people are saying about you. You don't need to be torn down by it. You don't need to speak against it. You can just go and say, God will take care of it. This is the first time he speaks. Verse 13. Oh, what a response. So Moses cried out to the Lord, oh God, I beg you, please heal her. But the Lord said to Moses, if her father had done nothing more than spit in her face, wouldn't she be defiled for 7 days? So keep her outside the camp for 7 days, and after that she may be accepted back. So Miriam was kept outside the camp for 7 days, and the people waited until she was brought back before they traveled again. In most commentaries I read, the moment Moses prayed to God, asked the Lord to heal her, he did. But Miriam's consequence was not the leprosy. For the jealousy and the envy and the gossip that came out of her and just kind of took over her heart, we got for a moment to see a glimpse of what her heart looked like, because it reflected through the leprosy in what she looked like physically. And so she was healed. But the real consequence to gossip, to jealousy, to envy, when you let it take control and you just let it go, the real consequence is separation, isolation, ostracized from the crowd, from the group, from the nation. Miriam had to spend 7 days outside the camp all alone in the wilderness by herself. She was alone. It was dark. I bet it was scary. Put yourselves in her situation and begin to think how terrifying it would be to be in the middle of nowhere, forced out of your home. Her jealousy, her envy, her gossip, the discourse she was creating amongst the nation of Israel, it drove her away. When we get jealous and we let it take hold, when we gossip, when we start heading down that road, you are setting yourself up for failure, to be alone with no friends. Nobody wants to be around a gossip. Nobody wants to be around someone who they think is just going to turn around and talk about them behind their back. You will find yourself alone if we let gossip, if we let envy, if we let jealousy seep in to who we are. A couple years ago, there was a guy on staff here. He's been gone for a couple years now. Nobody in this room would know him. Had some work relationship issues with him, and it started out as seeking advice on how to process through some of those uncomfortable situations that were happening and what to do and all of that. But what's crazy is how quickly it turned into gossip. Oh my goodness, it was so fast. I couldn't even tell you when it happened. All of a sudden, it became me gossiping about things that he was doing and getting all frustrated with him. And instead of seeking advice, I just was going off about all these different things about him. I would make comments about, oh, well, he came from a different state, so doesn't, probably just doesn't correlate. So small, so petty, so little, and it just seeped in, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it created so much tension amongst our team. So much so that we had to sit in a room and kind of hash everything out. What I never did was talk to him myself. So we sit in this meeting, and I let it all out, all of it. It was the very first time he was hearing any of it. It was the very first time he heard that there was even a problem. I look back on that, and I realize, and it was through studying this, I realized how wrong that was. I hurt him deeply. So much so that our friendship doesn't really exist anymore. We've been separated, isolated, alone. That whole friendship was just gone. All because of what turned into a little bit of talk, a little bit of gossip. And what I didn't tell you was when he moved into the position that was frustrating me, I had a little bit of fear, a little bit of jealousy of some of his talents because I thought he was going to take my job. Jealousy is disgusting. It's ugly. It takes control of your life and your heart, and it hurts your relationships, the people around you, and it is so easy to do. Think about it. As young adults, you're seeing people start dating. You're seeing people get engaged. You're seeing people get married. You're seeing people get jobs. You're seeing people get going on their own, living by themselves. It is so easy in this season of life to start to become so jealous of the people around you. Frustrated that you're not advancing as quickly as they are. Frustrated that they are moving in the relationship circle quicker than you are. And what begins to happen is what Miriam and Aaron did. They needed to make themselves feel better because of their own insecurities. And what we do to this day is we will talk about people, we will put them down so that we can make ourselves feel better. And oftentimes, it's petty. You attack little things that don't even matter. You attack little things that are out of your control, out of their control. You start saying things that are just flat out not true. Miriam and Aaron, they were like, Moses' wife, we don't like her. Petty. They said that Moses, God only talked to him. That wasn't true. God has used both Aaron and Miriam in the past to do things. And it was a direct reflection of the insecurities they had because they wanted the position that Moses had. So what do we do? You're like, man, you just beat me up with that. There's hope. There's always hope. Anytime there seems to be no hope, and what do? It's so hard to not get jealous. It's so hard to not talk about it with someone. How do I do that? How do I process through all of that? There's hope. And I've kind of nailed down like three things that I would say, man, if we can focus on these three things, man, we can avoid finding ourselves in situations of jealousy, of gossip, of envy, and letting that take control of our lives. Number one, single most important, is seek Jesus. Sounds simple. You're like, he got me. I thought it was going to be so profound. It is. Seek Jesus. Seek Jesus. Go after his teachings. You know, Jesus said this in the book of Matthew. He's talking about our words. Our words are so powerful. I took a translation where it kind of paraphrases everything. It's called the Message translation. But in Matthew 12:36, I'm not going to put it on the screen or anything. I just want to read it to you. It says, "Let me tell you something. Every one of these careless words is going to come back to haunt you. If you are not careful with your words, they will come back, and you will reap the benefits of those words. There will be a time of reckoning. Words are powerful. Take them seriously. Words can be your salvation, or words can also be your damnation." Words are powerful. The things you say about people, it's powerful. Seek after the teachings of Jesus. He talks, man, the Bible is so full of talking about what to do with your mouth and the things you say. Seek Jesus. Go after his life, his teachings, all of it. Number two, look at Moses. He was humble. Be humble. That's another song, Kendrick Lamar, Be Humble. I'm not going to sing that one. I might get fired. Just kidding. Be humble. Moses was a humble guy. He did not care. He did not worry. He probably didn't even know Miriam and Aaron were going off about him and his leadership and how God favors him. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I gotta do what God's called me to do. Gotta lead the nation of Israel. You gotta do what God has called you to do, and you need to not worry about everybody else. It's called humility. You don't need to be better. You don't need to think of yourself as better. You don't need to take your position and compare it to someone else's position, because their position is their position and your position is your position. And that's the position that God has put you in for a season, for you to learn, for you to grow, because maybe down the road he has a position for you. But if you're so focused on someone else's position, how will you ever get to your position? Be humble. Seek Jesus. The third one, love people. Love people. Have a heart for people. I'll even go as far, have a heart for the people that you find yourself, it's very difficult to have a heart for them. The people you get jealous of, the people you can feel it. You know when it's about to happen. You know when there's that moment where you're like, ooh, I could say something right now and make me feel so much better about this because that person's annoying and I'm about to make them not annoying because I'm going to tell them what to do. Love people. Love people. Have a heart for people. When you seek Jesus, you'll be humble. When you seek Jesus, you'll see people the way Jesus sees people. Jesus loves people. And I will say this, to kind of close things out. The number one most important is number one for a reason. You cannot do the other things without seeking Jesus. You cannot truly love people without Jesus. Jesus is the very essence of love. How can you love people without him? Be humble. Ask Jesus to keep you humble. Oh man, that's a scary prayer. Pray that Jesus keeps you humble. Yeah, scary. Do it. Dare you. Try it. We'll try it tonight, all right? Going after Jesus. Seeking him. Giving him all of your attention. everything you have, just Jesus, 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 you will find yourself so humble because you won't even be thinking about it because you're focused on Jesus, not on yourself, not on your own life, not on your own position. And you will begin, your heart will quite literally change into a heart that has such a deep love and appreciation for everybody around you, no matter how different they are, no matter what position they're in, no matter if you want to be there. Love people, seek Jesus, and just avoid jealousy. That's how you do it. Avoid it and seek Jesus. Let's bow our heads. Let's pray. Dear God, I want to pray over these young adults. God, I can't think of a harder season of life it is to not get jealous, to not be envious of others. There's so much change going on in these years, from 18 to 25, so much goes on. God, I pray that you give everyone in this room the ability, the wisdom, the guidance, the conviction to seek you. God, I pray on behalf of everybody in this room, keep us humble. Keep me humble. Keep our church humble. Do whatever you have to. We never want to find ourselves proud. Lord, give us a heart for people. Let us put our attention on you, focus on you. Lord, you're amazing. You sent your son Jesus to die on the cross for us so that we could know you. In your heavenly name, amen.